The ocean wind carried laughter, champagne bubbles, and the sound of promises I no longer believed in. My daughter, Marie, glowed in her white gown beneath the Alabama sunset, while her groom, Brett, looked like a man who had everything under control. Everyone thought it was the perfect day. But 10 minutes before the ceremony, Brett asked me to step aside, just the two of us behind the floral arch near the dunes. He smiled, too confidently, and said, "Mrs. Hayes, I need $50,000 today." For a moment, the world stopped. The gulls still cried above us, the waves still whispered, but my heart burned cold. He had no idea that the very money he wanted was already mine, and so was everything he thought he owned. Before I continue, I just want to take a moment to thank all of my amazing subscribers. You have turned this channel into a family of listeners who understand pain, healing, and truth. And if you are new here, welcome! I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button and join us. Your likes and comments truly fuel this channel and help stories like mine reach hearts that need them. I would love to hear what you think about what just happened, because even now, remembering that moment still makes my hands tremble. Now, let me take you back to where this story really began. My name is Hazel, and for 58 years, I have learned that love often comes wrapped in lessons you never ask for. I raised my daughter, Marie, alone after walking out of an abusive marriage with nothing but a suitcase and a terrified child. I worked 3 jobs, cleaning motels in the mornings, sewing clothes at night, and serving coffee in between. Every dollar I earned went into Marie's future. When she told me she wanted to open a boutique, I sold my small home and moved into a rented room. I signed the business papers in her name, but kept the majority share under mine, just for her safety. Or so I told myself. I wanted her to shine, and she did. Within 5 years, Maribel Designs, a blend of our names, became the talk of Alabama. Celebrities wore her dresses, and Brett, a charming investor with an easy smile, appeared in her life like a dream come true. At first, I was happy for her, until I noticed the distance. Calls went unanswered, messages grew shorter, visits became rarer. I told myself it was success keeping her busy, but deep down, I knew it was something else. And then came the wedding. Everything looked perfect. White roses, satin ribbons, the smell of salt and champagne. But beneath the music, there was tension. Brett's eyes kept scanning the crowd, his smile forced. Marie seemed nervous, clutching her bouquet too tightly. Just before the ceremony, Brett approached me with that polished grin. "Mrs. Hayes, you have always been generous, but Marie and I need your help one last time. A simple investment, $50,000 today." I stared at him, unsure I heard right. $50,000? I repeated slowly. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You know, it would mean a lot to start our married life on solid ground. Marie told me you would understand." His words hit harder than any slap I had ever endured. He was not asking, he was telling, and worse, he was using my daughter's name to do it. I smiled, keeping my voice steady. "Is that what Marie said?" He nodded confidently, mistaking my calm for surrender. But as he walked away, I saw something glint in the pocket of his tuxedo, a folded document with my signature. My breath caught. He had my business papers. And suddenly I knew it was not about a wedding gift. It was about taking everything I had built. The sound of the waves faded into the background as I stood there, watching Brett walk away with my signature tucked into his pocket. My hands were trembling, but not from fear. Something deeper was stirring inside me. I had spent too many years learning how to recognize control when I saw it. And Brett, he was the kind of man who smiled while tightening invisible chains. But this was not the first time I had seen that look in a man's eyes. It was the same look my ex-husband used to give me right before he told me that I would never make it without him. I met my husband, Gerald, when I was 19. He was charming, funny, and had a way of making me feel like I was the only woman in the world. That feeling disappeared within a year of marriage. He started with words, small, cutting ones, that made me question my worth. Then came the bruises. Then came the nights I locked myself in the bathroom with my baby, Marie, pressed against my chest while I whispered promises that one day I would take her away. And I did. One cold February morning, I packed a small bag, wrapped Marie in a blanket, and ran. No money, no plan, just faith and fear holding hands. Life after that was not kind, but it was honest. I scrubbed hotel floors until my knees gave out. I stitched dresses until my eyes burned. I worked nights and mornings, but every ache, every blister was worth it because Marie smiled again. She was the reason I breathed. When Marie turned 24, she showed me a sketchbook filled with dress designs. She said, "Mama, one day women will wear my dreams." I still remember how proud I felt when she opened her first small shop, just a corner rental with 2 sewing machines and a cracked mirror. I was her first employee, her cleaner, her assistant, and her silent investor. When the business grew, she suggested bringing in a partner. That was when Brett arrived, a young man in a tailored suit, charming as honey, with that polished Southern accent that could sell ice to the desert. He invested a little, but what he offered most was flattery. He made Marie feel unstoppable. He told her she deserved more money, more recognition, more independence. And slowly, I watched my daughter drift away. She stopped asking for my advice. She said things like, "Mama, you do not understand business," or "Brett knows what he is doing." Every time she said his name, a part of me tightened. When their relationship turned romantic, I tried to stay supportive. I wanted her to have what I never had, a partner who cherished her. But as the boutique success soared, I noticed changes. Marie began dressing like him, speaking like him. She replaced our old wooden sign, hand-painted by me, with a glossy metal one that simply read, Maribel. And even though it still carried both our names, I could no longer see mine in it. Brett began attending meetings without informing me. Documents were changed, contracts rewritten. But every time I tried to ask questions, Marie would brush me off with, "Mama, it is all under control. Trust us." Trust. A small word that had cost me so much in life. Now, standing on that beach, watching guests take their seats, everything began to make sense. His demand for $50,000 was not about love or support. It was about control. He wanted to corner me, emotionally, financially, publicly, so that saying no would make me look cruel. And those papers in his pocket, that was his insurance. I looked across the aisle and saw my daughter, my beautiful Marie, laughing nervously as bridesmaids adjusted her veil. She did not see me watching. She did not see the hurt behind my smile. But then, as I turned to head back to my seat, I froze. Behind the reception tent, I heard their voices. Brett and Marie. "Once she signs, it's done," Brett said. His tone was low but sharp. Marie hesitated. "She trusts me, Brett. I do not want to hurt her." "You are not hurting her," he replied smoothly. "You're just making sure our future is secure. Once her name is off the business, we can expand without her interference. She's had her time. Now it's ours." My breath caught in my throat. My knees almost gave way. My daughter's voice came next, quiet but clear. What if she finds out? Brett chuckled. She won't. By the time she does, it'll be too late. I stepped back, pressing my hand against the tent pole to keep from collapsing. My heart was breaking, but my mind was sharpening. They thought I was old. They thought I was naive. But they had forgotten one thing. I was the woman who had survived everything once before. I wiped my tears, straightened my dress, and walked back toward the crowd, calm, smiling, unreadable. As I took my seat, I whispered under my breath, "Let them have their wedding. They will never see the storm walking beside them." The ceremony began under a sky painted in soft gold and rose. The guests rose to their feet as Marie walked down the aisle, her dress flowing like ocean foam. She was radiant, my baby girl, my heartbeat. But behind that radiance, I saw something else. A flicker of guilt, a trace of fear. And then, beside her, stood Brett, tall, confident, with the smug calm of a man who believed the world was his. He looked at me once, his lips curling into a polite smile, the kind that masks arrogance. He thought I was powerless. He thought my silence meant surrender. He had no idea that every smile I gave him was another stitch in the noose he was quietly tightening around his own neck. The vows began. Marie's voice trembled as she promised love and loyalty. Brett's tone, on the other hand, was smooth, rehearsed, almost transactional. Guests sighed, dabbed tears, and whispered about how perfect they looked together. I could taste the irony in the salt of the sea breeze. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, cheers erupted, champagne corks popped, music filled the air. But even as people danced, I could feel the unease swirling beneath the surface like a rip current ready to drag everything under. Marie came to me for a hug after the ceremony. Her perfume smelled like lilies and guilt. "Mama, are you happy?" I looked into her eyes, the same brown eyes that used to look up at me from a blanket in a shelter years ago. "I am proud," I said softly. "But happiness is earned, baby. It is not borrowed." Her smile faltered for half a second before she turned away. At the reception, Brett took the microphone first. His voice carried easily, trained for charm. "I would like to thank my beautiful wife," he said, glancing at Marie, "and her amazing mother, Mrs. Hazel Hayes, for her generosity and support. Truly, we would not be here without her." Applause followed. Cameras flashed. Then he turned to me. "And Hazel," he continued, "I know you have always believed in investing in Marie's dreams. Maybe today you will bless us again. After all, you built an empire together." He winked. People laughed, thinking it was just a sweet joke, but I knew it was a dagger wrapped in sugar. I raised my glass and smiled. "Oh, Brett," I said evenly, "you have no idea how right you are. This empire was built on faith, sacrifice, and a name that still belongs to me." A few heads turned. Brett's smile stiffened. Marie stared at me, confused. I simply took a sip of champagne, my pulse calm and steady. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and music drifted through fairy lights, I handed them a small cream-colored envelope tied with a silver ribbon. Marie looked surprised. "Mama, what is this?" I said, "A wedding gift. Open it when you are together." Brett smirked, probably imagining a check. He slipped it into his jacket pocket without looking. But it was not a check. It was a copy of the business ownership documents, the ones showing that Maribel Designs was still legally under my majority control. Attached was a note in my handwriting. "A mother's love builds, but it never blindly gives away what she bled to create. Congratulations on your marriage." About an hour later, as I stood near the bar sipping sparkling water, I saw Brett's expression change. One of the guests, a mutual acquaintance from the boutique, leaned toward him and whispered something. His smile vanished instantly. He excused himself from the dance floor and walked out toward the dimly lit deck, his steps quick, his composure cracking. I followed, unseen. Under the soft glow of string lights, he pulled out the envelope and ripped it open. His eyes darted over the documents once, twice, 3 times. "No," he muttered, his voice sharp with disbelief. He looked around, searching for someone, probably Marie. But before he could move, I stepped forward from the shadows. "Looking for me?" I asked, quietly. He spun around, startled. "You? What is this? You cannot... These papers, this is... legal." I finished for him, my tone calm. "Completely legal. You see, Brett, you never took the time to read what you thought you owned. You were too busy trying to manipulate what you did not build." His face flushed with rage. "You cannot keep control forever. Marie and I will..." I interrupted softly. "Marie and you will do whatever your hearts decide. But just remember, my name is still written over every wall you think you own." He stared at me, jaw tight, breath heavy. The man who had demanded money that morning was now speechless. As I turned to walk away, I heard Marie's voice calling from behind the deck. She had seen us. She was holding the opened envelope in her trembling hands, her eyes wide, her face pale as moonlight. She whispered, almost inaudibly, "Mama, what have you done?" And I looked back at her and said, "What I should have done a long time ago." The music stopped. Somewhere, a glass shattered. The night was no longer a wedding. It was a reckoning waiting to happen. The music had stopped, but the ocean kept roaring, its waves crashing like applause from an unseen audience. Every guest turned their head as Marie stood frozen at the edge of the deck, her trembling hands holding the envelope that had just ripped her perfect day apart. Brett's face was a storm, anger, shock, and fear battling behind his eyes. For the first time, his confidence was gone. I stood between them and the sea, my heart heavy but unyielding. The golden lights from the reception flickered across the water, reflecting a truth none of them could hide anymore. This was not a wedding. It was an unveiling. "What is this supposed to mean?" Brett snapped, his voice slicing through the night. "You want to embarrass us in front of everyone." "No," I said calmly. "I want to remind you that nothing built with deceit lasts." Marie stepped forward, eyes glistening. "Mama, why did you not tell me? Why did you hide this?" "Because I trusted you. I thought if I gave you space, you would remember who helped you build your dreams. But you chose to forget, and you let this man turn your heart against me." The crowd had begun to gather, whispers swirling like wind through dry leaves. The officiant, the guests, the waiters, everyone stood still, watching as a mother and daughter's truth tore the night in two. Brett sneered, stepping closer. "You think this makes you powerful. You are just a bitter old woman clinging to something that is not yours anymore." His words hit hard, but I did not flinch. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "Everything you see around you, the dresses, the brand, the name, was born from my pain, my sacrifice, my tears. And you only saw profit." The silence that followed was colder than the ocean wind. Marie's expression shifted from confusion to realization. She turned to Brett, her voice trembling. "You told me you handled the business transfer." He stiffened. I thought she signed it already." "You thought?" She cut him off, her voice cracking. "You used me to try to steal from my own mother." "Marie, do not twist this," he said, reaching for her arm. But she stepped back. "Do not touch me." Her voice carried over the waves, strong and clear. Gasps rippled through the guests. Some turned away in discomfort. Others stared, transfixed, as the perfect couple's mask shattered before their eyes. Brett's composure disintegrated. "You will regret this," he hissed, glaring at me. I smiled faintly. "I already have, many times over. But not anymore." Security, alerted by the commotion, approached from the tent. Brett threw one last look of pure venom before storming off down the beach, his polished shoes sinking in wet sand. Marie's hands shook as she looked at me. Her voice was soft now, almost childlike. "Mama, I do not know what happened to me. I thought he loved me." I touched her cheek gently. "Baby, love without respect is just control in disguise. I tried to warn you, but you could not hear me while his voice was louder." Tears spilled down her face. "I betrayed you." I nodded slowly. "You hurt me, yes, but I am not here to punish you. I am here to remind you that you are stronger than the people who use you." We stood there, mother and daughter, with the sound of the ocean filling the silence between us. For the first time in years, she fell into my arms. Her sobs were soft, broken, like waves dying on the shore. The next few weeks were a blur of headlines and silence. Maribel designer wedding scandal ran across every local blog. Brett tried to salvage his image, but once the documents went public, investors fled. He vanished quietly, leaving behind debts and rumors. Marie closed the boutique for a month. She came to stay with me, not as a businesswoman or a betrayed bride, but as a daughter seeking forgiveness. We cooked together, cleaned together, prayed together, and one evening, as we watched the sunset from my porch, she said softly, "I want to rebuild, Mama, but this time I want to do it right. With you." I smiled. "Then let us rebuild, not for revenge, but for redemption." Months later, Maribel Revival opened in a smaller space by the shore, the same beach where her wedding fell apart. This time, there were no luxury banners or fancy investors, just handcrafted designs, honest work, and a sign painted by my own hands again. As customers entered, I stood by the window, feeling the sea breeze against my skin. The same wind that once carried betrayal now whispered peace. I knew life would never be perfect, but it had come full circle. I turned to Marie and said, "Sometimes God lets us lose everything, just to remind us what love truly costs." She smiled, tears in her eyes. "And what does it cost, Mama?" "Everything," I whispered, "but it gives back more than money ever could." The ocean shimmered, and for the first time in a long while, I let myself breathe. So if you have ever been betrayed by those you love most, remember this: strength is not loud. Sometimes it's just a woman smiling through the storm, waiting for the truth to come ashore. Thank you, my dear listeners, for walking through this story with me. If it touched your heart, please like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. And if you are new here, I would be honored to have you join this family by subscribing for more stories of truth, betrayal, and redemption. Because sometimes the hardest stories to tell are the ones that heal us the most.